We're bringing healthy back. Them other bros don't know about the facts.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Magic of Metabolic Health podcast.
Woo.
My name is Amelia Wood, and I am a food first personal trainer and metabolic health coach. This is my esteemed colleague and co host, Dr. Fumi Awayami.
Hi, guys. I
Hey,
am a board
Fumi.
certified internal medicine physician specializing in metabolic health, and I'm glad to be here. How you doing, Amelia?
So good, so good. Nice to see you. How are you today?
I am feeling good. I'm feeling good. I'm ready to talk about our topic. I'm really excited about this one because so many of my patients, half of them are male.
Nice. Yeah. So let's get into it. So, everybody, in case you're new here, we want you to be sure that you understand why we're here. Here at the Magic of Metabolic Health podcast, we are building a village that encompasses every part of who you are.
Mhm.
We release guilt and shame and the quest for perfection and show you how self-efficacy and knowing your why are crucial tools in sustainable behavior change and, of course, optimizing your metabolic health.
Well, that's what we're here for.
So today is episode 10. We have made it to the double digits.
Double digits. You have no idea how excited that is for that. I have like 10 episodes. Come on, girl. We deserve it. I was like, I'm going to take you on a vacation after this because we deserve it.
Ooh.
I know,
Okay,
right?
that's on record. That's on record. We're not editing that out. So the whole world knows that you're paying for my next vacation. Thank you.
What?
Anyway, so yeah, we're at episode 10. This is a big accomplishment for us. And we thought, what better rhymes with the word 10 than men?
Is that how we got here?
I mean, I didn't think about it that way until I started, we were doing the notes and the outline and stuff. And I was like, 10 for men, 10
for
things
men.
for men, the top 10
Oh.
men. I mean, there's so many ways we could go about
Tell me about
mixing
it.
up the language. But we did have a man as a guest in our last episode, which was our dad, Michael Wood.
Mhm.
So he really inspired us to talk more, excuse me, to talk more and explore and just see what we can offer men. We love our men.
Yes.
We have so many men in our lives, whether it's coworkers, whether it's partners or brothers or cousins and uncles. And so, ladies, we want to make sure that you understand that this episode is for you too. And that's because we know that every woman has a man in her life, whether you want them or not. Men are here. They're here to stay. And we believe that everybody deserves metabolic health, optimal metabolic health. And as women who are living in an environment with men,
Mhm.
we have our own experiences and really want to talk about men's metabolic health because we really want you, men, to be happy and healthy. So, ladies, this is just as important for you. Pay attention to this episode because we can learn together to better understand and support the men in our lives.
I love that. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Like I was saying earlier, half my patients are men, maybe more than half, actually, if I have to like do the demographics. And we are living in a society where it's kind of normal for men to kind of like delay going to the doctor or like not go to the doctor until it's too late or not think that they need to go to a doctor or kind of not really even know what's the best thing for their health specifically as a gender. And so it's important. That's why I love this episode that we're talking about it, because what better way to bring that to the forefront than let's talking about how to make your metabolic health good as a man. So let's do it. For the most part, when we talk about like men's metabolic health, let's talk about why it matters. And the reason why it matters is because men are fundamentally different than women. And I know when I say fundamentally different, I mean fundamentally different. Like the difference with body composition, insulin resistance, insulin sensitivity, your resting metabolic rate everything about men are different. They weigh more, their muscle mass is more, they have larger hearts, they have more hemoglobin. There are fundamental differences between men and women. And if you treat men and women the same when you are eating and training, you will find that that's not going to work, because women have different ways of living. For example, women have cycles, and our cycles cause us to be more insulin sensitive, and the fluctuating movements of our hormones causes our bodies to be different. So you can't optimize your metabolic health as a man doing the same things as you would do as a woman. It's just not the same. And so knowing what would work best for you is the best way moving forward. That's why it matters.
Yeah, and I like kind of what we talked about just getting ready for the show, Fumi. We're trying to keep it simple, right? We want the information and our conversation to resonate with you guys, and I think we came down to like three main sort of topics that we're
Right.
going to cover today. So it's going to be really simple. We'll be sure to add things in the show notes as our dialogue develops, because we love to improvise and we have fabulous ideas that come outside of the script. So we'll
Sure.
be sure to share resources and things like that as we move forward. But I guess the touch points are three main areas. And one thing I do like is that, Fumi, you're a doctor, I'm a personal trainer and health coach. And so you said something when we were getting ready for the episode about bringing the medicine. Like, as the doctor, you're bringing the medicine, and Amelia, as the coach or trainer, is bringing the why.
Sure.
And I think that's really important to emphasize here is, every show we bridge that we bridge maybe the gap that's sometimes there in knowledge or experience. And we also want to emphasize that everything we talk about on this show has to be linked to why we're doing it.
Why are we
Why
doing
do you want to know about metabolic health? Why do you want to make a change?
Why is
And
it important?
why is it important? So we're going to talk about that as well, kind of dabble in that. But Fumi, I mean, since you're the doctor, I bet guys have a lot of questions for you. And so
Sure.
we did do kind of an unofficial pre-show poll where we talked to men in our lives of
Yeah.
all different ages and backgrounds.
Mhm.
Some I didn't know personally, they were friends of friends. Some were relatives. And so the first topic we're going to talk about is hormones. And I think, Fumi, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like the big hormone that a lot of men are concerned about is the T word, testosterone. And since this is a metabolic health show, we're going to not just talk about testosterone, but its relationship with probably the other most important hormone, insulin.
Mhm.
So, Fumi, take it away.
So we're talking about why men's metabolic health, why it matters. And so in order to keep it simple, there is an age difference in your metabolism. And that metabolism starts to go down around after the age of 40. So we're going to separate the men into two different categories, men under 40 and men over 40. So men under 40, when we talk about your metabolism, we want to talk about creating a strong foundation for the future. So we want to talk about building your muscles. We want to talk about your testosterone levels. And then we also want to talk about your insulin sensitivity and the type of recovery that you have when you're in the gym. Versus men over 40, we want to talk about muscle preservation. We want to talk about, how you can keep your hormones balanced, and then also about losing fat, because as you grow older, you have more of a tendency to gain fat. And as you gain fat, there comes a lot of sequela or consequences of just having fat on your body. Fat is not just something that sticks to your body. Fat gives off hormones. And so if your fat is not regulated or not balanced, then you might not feel like your best self. Okay? So that's just that over there. So like you said, we're going to separate this into three different categories. And the categories of hormones are super important is because hormones rule our lives, wreck our lives if it's not honed in. And so the big T, as you like to say, the big T is that we're going to talk about testosterone. So when it comes to testosterone, testosterone is a hormone that is given off by your testes, and what it does is that it regulates your body's ability to think. It regulates your body's ability to act. It also counteracts with other hormones like insulin, like human growth hormone, like what else, like cortisol. And so when you don't have enough testosterone, those other hormones go out of flux. That's just the best way to put it. And so right now, there's a large population in the country that does not have enough testosterone in their system. And because they don't have enough testosterone in their system, they don't have enough human growth hormone in their system. And that's what allows your body to grow and move and your muscles to swell. You don't have enough insulin in your system. That's what allows you to digest your food and digest your carbs and be able to make more muscle. So it's literally just a vicious cycle of you not having enough hormones for you to actually feel like your best self. And that's a big problem. That's a huge
So
problem.
I have a question because I think testosterone, or the fear of testosterone, the worry of it not being enough for men, what I hear um, is is usually isolated, right? And that's why we're going to bring in the other hormones. But um, like my question is insulin, it's like the is it the chicken or the egg that came first? Is, let's say a man has some metabolic conditions, like he's having symptoms. One thing that is also talked a lot about is ED, or erectile dysfunction. Most men that I've heard of who talked about it, briefly, honestly, with me, yeah, I'm not a doctor, but I've heard these stories. It's like, oh, I have ED, therefore I have low T. And they just target that. And same with the doctors. It seems like
Okay.
they just go straight to the T and aren't looking at the insulin or the other hormones. So, what's your take on the relationship of testosterone and maybe insulin and ED or other metabolic symptoms?
Okay. So here's how it works. Um, when I have male patients come into the clinic or the hospital or they're admitted, the thing that brings them in is ED. It's always erectile dysfunction. I hate to say it like this, but a lot of men will like kind of like deal with a lot of symptoms. They could be short of breath, they could have vision loss, they could damn near not walk. But the moment that you start having erectile dysfunction, not being able to last in bed, not be able to have an erection, not be able to keep an erection, not be able to satisfy their whoever, whatever partner that they have, that's what makes them come into the hospital. And so they don't care about insulin. Amelia, I'm not gonna hold you. They do not care about the insulin. They do not care about the fat. They don't care about any of that. The thing that brings them into the hospital is erectile dysfunction or anything that and because when you think about like just men in general, especially in our society, your virility is literally um how you feel about yourself. So your ability to have an erection, your ability to keep an erection, your ability to have sex is directly linked to their self-esteem, their sense of self. And so the moment you lose that, like you're like, wait a minute. Nothing else is important except for this. And that's, of course, that's not true. But the fact of the matter is just that that's how a lot of male patients feel. So they don't.
So, yeah, how do you address that? Like, what's your first question if someone comes in like, I need testosterone replacement or
Ah,
whatever? Like,
no.
what other questions do you ask them to see, oh, you have other signs and symptoms that are
Sure.
probably affecting or impacting your T levels?
Sure. This is what I do. So typically, let's say it's a like I said, we're doing it two categories. If it's a young person, less than 40, I know that they came in with, and I know that they're in the hospital or in the clinic is very unusual because young men don't come to the hospital unless their partners force them to, or they have a symptom that finally made them come into the hospital. So if their partners force them to, then I say, how's your relationship with your partner? Are you guys sexually active? Is the sex satisfying for you and for your partner? If they say no, I go down the avenue of like, okay, what's going on with the sex? Are you sexually compatible? Have you had good sex before? You're not having good sex now? And they say, yes, we're not having good sex now. I say, okay, so what are the issues? They're like, actually, and then the moment that you give them, you hold space for a male patient to allow them to confess. So I'm less of a doctor and more of a like a priest at that moment. So it's like, bless me, Father, so far I have sinned. And then that wall comes down, and then the whole confession comes out. Actually, I have not been able to sexually satisfy my partner. I have not been able to hold an erection, or during sex, I can start the erection, but I can't keep an erection, or I ejaculate within 30 seconds or 1 minute, or whatever the case may be. The moment that you hold space and you allow them, the confessions come out, and suddenly it's like, okay, this is what's been going on, and this is how long this has been happening. Thank God that you're a doctor, and I can just tell you, because I have not been able to tell, they can't even tell their significant other that this is what's going on, or they can't tell another man that this is what's going on. And so the doctor becomes like your savior, like, oh, okay, finally I can tell somebody about this. Can you fix this? And the answer is typically yes. Yes, we can fix this, but it's going to take some work, and we need to figure out what's causing it. So coming to your physician and letting them know is the first step of being able to fix it. Yes.
Yeah, and I'm curious what you look at, or what other questions you might ask them, or maybe a blood panel. What kind of blood test do you do besides just testing for testosterone? Like, are there other blood markers that can show, the hormones in general are out of balance?
Sure, of course. So when I have a patient that they've come in for, let's say, ED or whatever, or they have some type of symptom, maybe they have like tingling in their hands or feet, or maybe they have high blood pressure, whatever the case may be. What I typically do is I take a good look at them. And the reason why is that we're looking at the patients. If you have a very high BMI, that means that your BMI is greater than, let's say, 30.
Body
That
mass
means
index.
Huh?
Body mass
The
index.
body mass
Yeah.
index. That means that you probably have more fat than you're naturally supposed to. And so, like I said earlier, fat is not just an accumulation of tissue underneath your skin that makes your body, like, big. It's not just something that makes you heavy. Fat in itself is giving off hormones. Most of those hormones are things like estrone, which is a type of estrogen that breaks down into estrone, right? And so your body's giving off all kinds of hormones that's allowing you to disrupt your other hormones like testosterone. So if you're a man and have a higher BMI, body mass index, you might have more estrogen than you have testosterone. And that estrogen is not supposed to be as high in a man as it is in a woman. And so now your testosterone is further suppressed because you're giving off a hormone that you're not supposed to be giving off to such a higher amount. In addition, once again, fat. When you have fat, it makes you insulin resistant. That means that the insulin that is in your system to bring in the sugars into your cells to be able to make energy, your body, your cells are no longer like seeing that insulin. It says, I see the insulin, but it's not enough for me to bring in the nutrients and the sugars into my cell. So I'm just going to leave this sugar out in the vasculature, and it's going to wreak havoc, and it's going to cause diabetes. So fat affects your testosterone. It affects your insulin sensitivity. It affects so many things. So the number one way I look at a patient and go, okay, your BMI is a little bit high. I'm also going to look at your CBC, which is your complete blood count. I'm going to look at your hemoglobin A1C. I want to see if you're over the last 3 months. It marks just how sugary your blood is. And so this is a marker of diabetes. I'm going to look at your lipid panels, because I want to know if you have too much lipids in your system that's going to cause heart disease, or it's going to cause atherosclerosis, it's going to cause risk for strokes and heart attacks. So I'm going to look at these things. Other things I'm going to be looking at, like I said, before I even get to testosterone, those are at least those 3 things I'm going to look at, because those things are really important. When you get to testosterone, the patients usually come in and go, oh, I have this issue. And I say, okay, we're going to get a morning testosterone, because the testosterone is highest in the morning. And that's why you have erections in the morning as a man. So the number one reason a lot of patients even come to me is like, I stopped having morning erections. All right, that's a bad news bear. That means something's going on. And so then we have to kind of elicit, okay, we're going to do the morning testosterone. We're going to do it not once, but twice, to make sure that it's not a fluke. If it is low both times, then I go, okay, your testosterone is in fact low. Is this something that we have to replace, or is this something that something else is going on? Do you have high blood pressure? Do you have diabetes? Is your BMI high? And or is it psychological? And that's a big one too. Because a lot of patients are like, okay, I'm actually healthy. I work out, I do all this stuff, but for whatever reason, I am having performance anxiety. I'm not being able to keep an erection. It has nothing to do with their health and all right here.
Yeah, mental stuff we're going to get into later, but yeah, that's a huge topic. And um, so we'll save that for later.
Yes.
But was there anything else that maybe you wanted to share from your patient experience as far as, I really enjoyed hearing about all the blood testing that you would do because it helps me and hopefully the men watching understand that it's not just a tea problem. We can't
Sure.
just isolate it and say,
It's not just a tea
you just
problem.
need more tea. And oh, actually, one of the questions that came up listening to you was, do you know why or what's common to produce what produces higher estrogen levels in a man? Like what would
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, like I said, this whole segment that we're doing right now is just about the hormones. And so you have to remember men are supposed to have more testosterone than estrogen. And so we're living in a society where a lot of things are causing a lot of estrogen. For example, there's the there's the slur that people are using called soy boys. And it essentially means is that, yeah, I know. It means that you have more estrogen in your system than testosterone, or you're exuding a lot of estrogen. And so that would make you more like woman like or more feminine or whatever the case may be versus having more testosterone. And so there are things in our food that causes you have more estrogen, like that, like, the ingestion of soy has been shown to increase the amount of estrogen that you like make there. But there's much more than that. As in, how about just a bad diet? How about the fact that your diet is poor, you don't go to the gym, the things that you need to actually produce more testosterone you don't do, and as a result estrogen just becomes higher just because of the lack of testosterone that you're making. So it's not just the things that you're doing the things that you're eating to increase your estrogen. How about the things that you're not doing to increase your testosterone? So it works. It's when it comes to hormones, because it's like a lever. Some things go up, some things go down. As in, and as women are, how do I put this? So women are used to having those hormonal fluxes because we have monthly cycles, because we have puberty, and then we have menopause. So we already living a very conscious life of having our hormones being in constant flux. Our estrogen and our testosterone and our progesterone, it fluxes on a monthly basis. Men don't have this. And because they don't have this, when it does flux for them, it becomes almost like an existential crisis, because suddenly, guess what? They're not supposed to flux like that. Is a fundamental difference between men and women. And the more we can understand that fundamental difference, the more you can be able to say, okay, how can I help myself?
I've heard that men's hormonal cycle is actually a 24-hour period. Have you ever heard that?
A 24-hour period.
Oh,
So
not
yeah,
20. I didn't mean period, but you know what I mean?
it was like,
A-
so,
Across 24 hours. That's a good one. A little Freudian slip.
I know, right? So I've heard of, like I said, I've heard a lot of things about men's hormones. Like I said, they do flux. Don't get me wrong, but they just don't flux as wildly as women's, because we are doing a monthly cycle that allows us to be able to have children if you want children. And so women's cycles are just fundamentally different. Men's cycles, we need to learn more about it. Honestly, there's so much more to learn about it. And because we've been on the constant chase of the big T, we don't know as much as we should know about how men's hormones flux in that way, or at least it's not that we don't care, but like, as in, the gender has to care in order for there to be changes. And now, right now, we're seeing the biggest changes in men's health. People want to know, why is it that men are having like higher rates of like, mental health crises, and higher rates of loneliness, and higher rates of suicide? And why is it that it only takes Why is it that it takes erectile dysfunction and things that's happening to your member in order for you to bring you into the hospital? It should be more than that. You are worthy as a man to have a good life, have a metabolically optimized life beyond just your ability to perform sexually.
Mm.
And that's important.
Yeah. You said something about soy boys. I'd never heard of that before.
It's horrible. Honestly, it's like because there's a lot of like hazing in the male gender, just about making comparing oneself to being like a lower man or versus like being like a higher man or like being like a top dude or an alpha or all these like weird like nomenclature that they like words that they use to like degrade each other, and it's like it's like I'm not a man, as in it's really hard to kind of talk about it
Hmm.
from my point of view. All I can tell you is how my patients have suffered because of such slurs. And I know that it's not
Yeah.
necessary because a lot of these things are fixable.
Well, coming from the food first perspective, if soy is, which I've also read a lot of research, and we can put a link in the show notes about soy and how it impacts hormones for both men and women. There are many, many studies, and it's also very controversial. Some people say women need, uh, they benefit from more soy products the older they get, like in perimenopause or menopause. And then
Sure.
anyway, I just wanted to point out that, you know, soy is a product that is in almost every ultra processed food. And you might not think, oh, I don't, or you might think, oh, I don't eat soy. Like, I don't eat tofu. I don't eat soybeans. Like, that's not
Right.
a problem for me. But if you eat hamburgers with ketchup, mustard, mayo, mayo is usually made out of soybean oil. If you
Mm,
get any kind of salad dressing, soybean oil. If you get any kind of chip product, soybean oil.
yeah.
Crackers. I mean, there's so many things with soy products that we don't even know about. That was
Right.
just something I wanted to bring up to kind of consider if you don't consider yourself a soy eating person.
I
You
love
might
that.
want to check your labels of your food, and you'll probably find it more often than not.
I love it. Thank you so much for bringing that to the forefront, because a lot of my, like I said, once again, I am always advocating for my male patients. So when I say men or male, I'm talking about the male patients that I've had. I'm also talking about like friends and family members that are male, and so they won't know that it's like a lack of knowledge about just about how much soy products are in our foods, and these are the foods that you're eating every day, and you wouldn't even know. And so by virtue of that being part of your diet and maybe having a poor lifestyle, not hitting the gym, not gaining the muscle, not doing the things to reinforce your testosterone, your amount of estrogen wins by default. And so that by itself is just right there. So there's ways to combat this, and this is why we're here today. And I'm so glad that we're doing this episode once again, because a lot of my male patients suffer, and um, we can reverse that decline in testosterone. We can improve your insulin resistance. Or improve your insulin sensitivity, and we can get back the muscle that you've lost. And there's so many things that you can ways to help yourself. And so we'll talk about it here today.
Yeah, so I think that brings us into our second topic, and that kind of covers fat gain, which you touched on already,
Sure.
but specifically fat gain for under 40, over 40, and then what contributes to that. We'll get into sleep, food, visceral fat. Like maybe we can start with defining fat gain, because sometimes people don't understand that there's different kinds of fat and it lives in different areas of our body for different reasons. And
Hmm.
I think from what I've heard from men, the beer belly is a common occurrence.
Sure.
Some men care about it, some men don't. It's not always caused by beer at all.
Sure.
And then there's other areas like you've heard the term man boobs. That's
Okay.
a concern for some. And
Sure.
then just feeling like disproportionate, where fat hangs out in other parts of the body where they're like, why do I have fat here and not there? whatever. So maybe, Dr. Fumi, you could maybe define visceral fat, number one, and then go on forward with whatever else you want to share.
Okay. So let's talk about visceral fat. And so when we talk about visceral fat, it's the fat that pads your organs. So, in your abdomen right here, you've got all your organs, your stomach, your intestines, your liver, all these plates, all your kidneys, everything. And so the cushion around these organs is often layered with fat. And so these are where your fat reserves are, especially as a man. With women, it's really around more like your buttocks and your hips, your thighs, which is what gives you that kind of like Coca-Cola shape. In men, it comes into your abdomen. And so that's why you get men that have like, who have, they maybe stop working out and immediately that fat starts layering in their abdomen. They get the tire, they get the fat apron, as some people call it, right in the middle, and they get the man boobs, as in they get a lot of fat being deposited all over their bodies, mostly in the middle here. And so that's when you see the problem with that is that that's typically caused by lower testosterone, right? And so the higher testosterone is, the less visceral fat that you have because your body is in a constant state of burning that fat in order for you to use for energy, in order for you to use for whatever you need it for. So let's say that you're not working out. You're not using your muscles. Your body all the energy, all the food and the carbs and the meat that you eat, instead of using it for your muscles when you're burning it, what happens is that it just gets stored into fat, and that fat gets deposited in your abdomen. And so the more fat that you have in your abdomen, guess what, you now become more insulin resistant. And so now you have you started like a chain of reactions with your hormones. And so getting rid of that fat is supremely important. When you're younger, it's easier because you have higher testosterone. When you're older, like I said, the over 40 people, fat loss and that hormone balance is going to be supreme for you in order for you to have the energy, the zeal, the strength that you want from that testosterone. And then naturally, as you age, your testosterone will naturally get lower, but there's a fight that you have to do to keep as much testosterone as you can. And you can do that by losing that visceral fat.
Got it. So, is visceral fat always visible on the outside? Like, could I be
Absolutely.
thin
Oh
and
yeah.
have a
So
lot of visceral fat?
nice question, Amelia. You got the people who are skinny fat. Have you heard of those people? They look good. They don't look like they. So the problem is that when we come from a society that's very aesthetically like motivated, right? So if you look good, like if you look like a skinny person, you're like, oh yeah, they're fine, they're healthy. Whereas if you see somebody that's bigger, you're like, obviously that person is not healthy. Meanwhile, you would be surprised the amount of people who genetically, for whatever reason, maybe their family, that kind of thing, they may be on the bigger side, but their blood panels are excellent. No pre-diabetes, lipid panels are good. And you'll be surprised about the many people who are skinny, like skinny in our eyes, but they've got a ton of visceral fat lining their organs. Their lipid panels look crazy. Their A1C is like 10. You would be shocked because we're not just following what is actually going on the inside. We're just looking at what's going on the outside. That's why I never judge a patient. I look at a patient and you'll be surprised. You'll have a patient that maybe their BMI is like maybe 35, 40, and you bring them in, their panels look excellent. Then you have a patient that looks like a BMI of like 20, which is normal, and then you bring them in, just insanity. They're dealing with alcoholism. They're dealing with their hormones is constantly in flux. They're poor sleepers. The inside does not match the outside. So that's why it's really important for you to follow up with your PCP. Get your panels. Follow up with somebody that's going to be able to get you right.
Yeah. So, around fat gain, how does sleep impact our fat stores?
Oh man, Amelia, you're asking me all the good questions. I love it. I
I'm a good
absolutely.
student
Is
today.
that right? So, when we talk about sleep, because how the best way to put sleep is by thinking about how sleep affects your hormones and how sleep affects your stress, for example. So the simplest way I can put it is that when you sleep just like fat is an active process. So when you sleep, you don't just go comatose and then you wake up the next day, your body is doing a lot of housekeeping, a lot of cleanup. Your body is scavenging all the lipids in your system. Your body's repairing the muscles that have been damaged. Your body's doing a lot of maintenance on your body when you sleep, which is why sleep is so important. So when your sleep suffers, your body doesn't get to do those active processes that it needs to do in order for you to be tip top. That's why when you don't have good sleep, 1, 2, 3 days, you start feeling like shit, Amelia. You start feeling like crap.
You
And
do.
so and so the thing is that when you don't sleep, your body also gives off something called cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone. That stress hormone, you need it for certain activities in your body. But when you have too much of it, what it does is that it tears everything down. It goes around your body and it wreaks havoc, breaking down everything. And so the number one thing that you could do to help yourself is getting proper, adequate sleep. You need sleep in order for you to function. If you say, I'll cut back on my sleep and I'll sleep when I'm dead, oh, you'll be dead, all right. Like you have to sleep in order for your body to be able to recover, in order to repair itself. If you don't give your body the ability to repair itself, it will take it from you. It will take it from you in other ways. And so you don't give your body the ability to sleep. Guess what? Your hormones get jacked up. Guess what? You're not even optimally making muscles when you are awake. Guess what? You're not even digesting food the way you're supposed to digest it. Guess what? Your hormones are influxing. Suddenly your mental health, your neuroendocrines and your neurotransmitters, that's the things, your serotonin, your dopamine, those get messed up. The number one thing, if you leave this episode with anything today, you must sleep in order for you to repair your body. You must. Man, women, children, literally, it is an active process that is worthy of everything. And so you must sleep in order for you to repair your body. I don't know how many times I got to say it. Let me say it
Yeah.
one more time.
Say it one more time, please.
If you want to rebuild muscle, if you want to get your testosterone right, if you want to get insulin sensitive in order for you to be able to digest the things that you are digesting, if you want to properly recover from your life, from the stresses, you must sleep.
And if you want to burn fat while you're sleeping, you got to sleep good sleep, deep
Right.
sleep, real
Imagine
sleep. Yeah.
imagine if you go sleep after you do all you go to the gym, you work out, and then you sleep, and then the sleep is horrible. And all the recovery that you're supposed to do from the gym you didn't do. And then the next day you wake up sore, not recovered. You feel like you've done double the work you're doing. You're just working against yourself. No, 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 no. You have to listen to that body. You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, so we covered sleep habits, and you also talked about food. So this is, my area of interest for sure, as far as our food habits and all the relative risks and benefits that we get around fat, right? So we're talking
Sure.
about fat gain. We can also talk about fat burn, and certain foods over time, especially when you develop a food routine or a food regimen,
Sure.
they can help you burn fat better and more efficiently.
Sure. Of course.
So I would like to kind of steer the conversation into, hey, so what kind of food actually helps me burn fat? What kind of food stabilizes my insulin or doesn't trigger an insulin response? It's fat, by the way.
It's interesting. So the thing about it is that a lot of people feel kind of jilted because we grew up in a society that told us that we need to eat, like we were talking about the last episode, 11 servings of carbs and maybe two servings of like protein, and that would be a balanced diet. Meanwhile, most men need actually much more meat. We need more protein. And it doesn't have to be meat. It doesn't have to be meat, but it has to be protein. We are under proteinated as a society. We don't eat enough protein. We eat too much processed foods. And like you were just saying, the processed food is filled with soy fillers that have little to no nutritional value. And then we also drink too much as a society. What is an alcohol, Emilia? What is alcohol?
What is alcohol? It's fun. It's totally fun.
Okay, it's like it that is what it is. It is quite fun, but it's a spirit. It gets stored as glycogen, and then when your glycogen storages are too high or you're full, then it starts getting converted into fat. And so you might find that if you're a young person and maybe you go out every weekend, you have some beer with the guys, no problem with that. You're allowed. You're allowed to go do your stress relief. But let's say that you're turning up at the club every weekend. You're drinking bottles and bottles. You're drinking the Casamigos. You're drinking the tequila. You're drinking the whiskey. You're drinking the Azul. You're doing all of that every single weekend. And suddenly you find that you're starting to get a little bit of a belly. You're not going to the gym as much. Guess what? The spirits that you're drinking, you've essentially replaced the amount of bread and pasta and potatoes. You're literally just drinking it straight up. That and your body has reached a T max, like a max of how much glycogen you can store, which is the excess energy that you need in an emergency. Now you've taken in too many of those carbs, and your body's not changing it into fat. It's going to store it, visceral fat, belly fat. It's going to store this fat in your limbs, in your legs, in your arms, and suddenly you're a young person that you're having this issue. Why is it that you're having this issue? You drank every weekend. You drank every weekend. You didn't work out. You didn't balance it.
Well, I hear that. Although my understanding of alcohol is that it's not a carbohydrate. Um, it's sugar, right? Depending on what it is.
I see.
So, like
So
whiskey, gin, tequila, rum, vodka are pure forms of alcohol that are completely free of carbohydrates. Now,
okay,
beer is different.
okay,
It's a totally different alcohol. But my understanding of why you can gain weight from the alcohol is multiple fold. I was going to say twofold, but I think it's more than I could even explain right here because I'm not an expert on how alcohol impacts everything to the T, right?
I'll
But
tell you that.
my understanding is that there are people who are low carb or keto and they drink low carb wine, they drink clear spirits, so vodka or tequila, and it doesn't spike their blood sugar. It
And it
doesn't,
doesn't have to.
in to a certain
Moderation.
degree, right?
Moderation.
Oh, I
So
don't use the word moderation, remember?
that's right. We use things to the level that they need to be. So how about this? Then let's break it down more than this. So when we think about the macronutrients, we talk about carbs, we talk about proteins, and we talk about fats, right?
Hmm.
So carbs get broken down into sugars, right? So all spirits did, the liquor, the vodka, the rum, the tequila, it just passed the carb, it went straight to sugars.
Hmm.
So there's simple sugars that go into your system. And if your resting metabolic rate is not high enough, it can't process it. Your body doesn't need all of those sugars because maybe you're not going to the gym, maybe you're not that active, and so your body turns it into fuel storage. And once your glycogen is full, it turns it into fat.
So I'm doing a lot of freestyle internet searching right now as we're talking because I guess I didn't really think we were going to get this deep into the alcohol topic, but
Sure.
I'm just
It's an
reading.
issue. The only reason I mention it is because it goes into the mental health thing later.
Sure, yeah, definitely. I mean, according to one of these websites I'm looking at, alcohol has the opposite effect. It makes our blood sugar drop. So let's can we talk about that right now? Because what it's saying is our liver is in charge of turning foods into energy for ourselves, usually in the form of glucose.
Sure.
Alcohol, however, primarily gets broken down in the liver, and since it's considered a toxin, our body works extra hard to get rid of it.
Sure.
So, when our liver is working on breaking down the alcohol, it isn't doing its other jobs, like what you were
Right.
talking about,
Mhm.
including regulating the amount of glucose in the blood. So, this explanation is, well, that's why our blood glucose can actually end up dropping while we're
Mhm.
drinking,
Mhm.
versus when we eat foods in high carbohydrate, our blood sugar spikes. And
Yeah,
so,
but that's for just that moment, though.
mhm,
That's just for that moment. So the thing about alcohol is that once again, it's a fun thing that you do. Um, so we know that alcohol is a simple sugar, and your body. when your liver is breaking it down, right? It may need to pause every other thing because your body essentially sees alcohol as a toxin. So your liver has to break down this essentially this sort of semi-toxic substance in order for you to be able to process it, because that's what the liver does. The liver does brings in all the things that are toxin. Your liver synthesizes it, and then it sends what it needs to send to as it sends what it needs to send to the trash, and it absorbs what it needs to absorb. In alcohol's case, your body needs to take care of this toxin right now. And so it stops its other processes in order for it to take care of that process right now. And so in a minute to minute thing for alcohol, if you can manage, if your liver can processes it, fine, we're good. You drank a little bit, you drank one drink, you drank two drinks, and that's why there's like guidelines on how much a person can drink in a day that your body can be able to manufacture, synthesize, and process. However, if you drink too much on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis, your liver will get overwhelmed. And with the excess sugars that you have now ingested, which is your alcohol, your body needs to take something and do something with all those toxins. So it removes the toxic part, and then the part that is the simple sugar, it turns it into storage. That storage is glycogen and fat.
Mm-hmm.
And that is why you see so many people when they drink too much, when they are a daily, a weekly drinker, whatever the case may be, it gets converted into fat. And like we said in this episode already, we talked about how fat affects your testosterone, how fat affects your insulin. It's a cycle. They're all interconnected. And so what we're not saying at the Magic of Metabolic Health, don't drink what? Have yourself a drink, have the wine, have the tequila shot, have the beer. You deserve it. We're living in a crazy world where you should be able to enjoy the things that you want to enjoy. What we're saying is that when you do things to excess and to the point that your body cannot handle it, your body will make changes to adapt to your habits.
Yeah, and that limit or that amount is per person. I can't say, I can't agree that 1 to 2 drinks a day is good advice for everybody, right?
Sure.
For
Sure.
people
Some
who are
people are
prone,
slower metabolizers, some people are faster metabolizers. As in, it depends,
and then you got to talk about addiction. Like having
right?
1 to 2 drinks a night after work might not be a problem for someone who can skip it for a week. But if you feel like you can't skip that 1 or 2 drinks, that's the
Bad
question
news
to
bear.
ask yourself. And
That's called bad news bear.
in
Um,
addition to
right.
that, right, it's, you got to ask your body or look at your body and look at evaluate symptoms that you might not think are symptoms. Like, do you constantly have GERD or acid reflux?
Sure.
Is it from the alcohol? We don't know. But
Could
if
be.
you cut out the alcohol and it goes away,
Guess what?
it's
Bad news
telling
bear.
it's telling you something. So, it's so nuanced. And I will say to everybody that I do drink alcohol. Okay. On the record, I do drink alcohol. I do
I
not drink
don't. Is that why I feel so hard on the alcohol?
what?
I'm not much of a drinker, but I think that people should be allowed to drink. You
Sure.
should.
And
You should be.
I'm not much of a drinker either. I have discovered over the years and suffering a lot of consequences that beer does not work for my body.
Sure.
Sweet wines don't work for my body. So I stick to dry wines and I stick to clear spirits, basically tequila or mezcal. And I can't touch vodka. It gives me an instant headache.
Sure.
So it's just interesting, right? Like I've gone months without drinking.
Sure.
And then when I feel like having a drink, I will have one.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm lucky, I don't know, that I haven't struggled with, oh man, I know I shouldn't drink, but I really need a drink. And there are a lot of people out there who do struggle, and that's okay. And I think that's something that we'll probably get into in the next topic, the next and final topic around mental health, And, just being honest with not only ourselves, but our friends and family, and saying like, this is a hard thing for me to not do. Yeah.
This is tough. And the reason why it's tough is because everyone is different. You could grow up with someone like from childhood and eat the same foods and do the same things. And you might be someone that's suffering from alcoholism, and your buddy could drink two, three drinks a night and quit cold turkey for like 3 months and not worry about it. Whereas you, the next day, all you're thinking about is your next drink. So it's a tough one. And because you start comparing yourself to what your buddy's doing or what you can't do, it further just emphasizes like that spiral of, well, why am I so different? Why am I having such a hard time with this? Why am I having such a tough time with this? And you're not alone. I think that's really important to say. You're not alone. You're not the only person that is dealing with having a tough time with it or using alcohol as a coping mechanism. And we're here to tell you that you're not alone. But learning about what it is that is your triggers and what it is that causes you to drink and how you can be able to abstain and that kind of thing is really important. And we'll get into that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's our last section, which includes stress. That's the hot topic. Is stress making you a hot mess? And what are your habits that are contributing to that stress? And how do we respond to external stresses that maybe, we didn't cause? It's not like we made a poor decision and something happened. Someone else maybe made a poor decision and impacted us. And the pre-show poll that we did that was kind of unofficial, one of the things that came up several times with several different men, and I'm sure Fumi, you can talk about this from your patient experience, is the concern is I don't feel comfortable or safe talking about my mental health to other guys. It's just something that is not common.
Sure.
And like you can, what I got from the feedback is like, yeah, you can talk about girl problems or relationship problems a little bit, but talking about ED doesn't happen. Talking about like depression doesn't happen. Talking about wanting to be healthier and maybe like not drinking as much, but then you lose out on the potential camaraderie with your friends. Like after work, you want to blow off steam or chill out, decompress, and the habit or the custom is like, oh, we go out to happy hour and we grab a few beers. Like there's nothing inherently wrong with that, right? Because you are socializing, you are, maintaining friendships, relationships. But what if you're one of those guys who knows that alcohol doesn't serve him in
Mm-hmm.
really any way? So
Okay.
do you have to choose between the alcohol and the friends or the camaraderie? And
You
how do
shouldn't
you
have
do
to.
that?
It's
That
like,
it's a delicate, dance,
it's
so to
delicate.
speak.
It's delicate. So what I'll say is that I don't want any of my male patients to miss out on like social, like camaraderie with the boys or whatever the case may be. But you got to know yourself. And if you're not someone that you can stick up for yourself, if you're someone that falls under like peer pressure, and you could experience peer pressure well into your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. You could be peer pressured into anything. You have to know yourself. You have to advocate for yourself. If you know that you can't go to a bar without getting completely drunk every weekend, then you shouldn't go. If you're someone that your friend group, they're someone that egg you on to drink more, and you're only somebody that wants to have one beer, you have to be able to find your spine. You have to be able to advocate for yourself. If you are somebody that you're having mental health issues and you don't think that your boys will be able to, they'll call you, all these slurs that like men call themselves, like calling themselves pussy or all these like these horrible things, because what you're saying is that you're not strong enough to deal with your own mental health, that you are coming to us crying. That's not the case. You're actually quite strong to be able to advocate for yourself and say something's not right. So if you can't go to your boys, then go to find some help that you can. Go to therapy, go find a mental health advocate, go find a mental health specialist, go find a counselor. These people are literally paid to help you. And so I think sometimes when, especially amongst men, when they're looking for advice, you go to another man, or you go to a man that you respect, or you go to an older man that may have dealt with the same things that you have. And if it's not a culture where you can talk to that person, then you go, well, there's nobody I can talk to, so I'll just let this thing eat me alive. That's not the case. There are people who are trained professionals. Yes, you have to pay them, but there are people that you can talk to. And then there's also the culture of using your significant other as a therapist, and like your girlfriend, your wife, your whatever the case may be. That person is not a mental health counselor. That person is not a mental health therapist, and that person is going to give you the advice that maybe he or she may be able to give you advice that would work for them, but that might not work for you. So getting the help that you need, getting taking care of your mental health, being a steward of your mental health is so important. And so choose you. Choose the best thing for you. And if you can't find it in your circle, go find this elsewhere. Simple.
Yeah, one of the things that was shared with me recently, and again, it's not like, oh, I just did this poll for this episode and I had no other life experience. I mean, like Fumi, you were saying earlier, we have so many men in our lives in so many different degrees, and we've grown up on this planet, raised by men in certain ways, whether it's our fathers or television or the government. You know, we have this relationship, and we have this experience as women of witnessing men suffering so
Mm.
much. And back to what I was saying is, uh, some men crave and really wish that they could have another man friend that they could confide in and be like, hey, I'm having a really hard time. But they've tried, and the other man that they've attempted to have a conversation with is just like not emotionally available. It's not
Right.
that he's necessarily rude or mean or anything. It's just he's not emotionally available.
It's tough.
And so I think one of the things that I've heard also a lot about is just navigating how to talk to another man without scaring him away.
that part, that part. I hate to say it, but I've seen two different types of men. I see ones that really look out for their fellow man in any way possible, and I've seen the ones that do not hold space for their fellow man. As in, and when I say hold space, I mean it's like a this is a term that that you often use in some of the circles that I'm in, which is that holding space has nothing to do with yourself. It's about giving your fellow man the opportunity, the avenue to express whatever it is that they are feeling, whatever it is that they're dealing with, and being this kind of non-judgmental, non-accusatory space. And so you see it in like these challenges where they said, we listen and we don't judge. Have you seen those challenges where we listen and we don't judge, and you just leave the person to say whatever they got to say, and the person just says it, and they go, okay, all right, that's what's really going on. And I was like, all right, okay, no problem. We listen and we don't judge. And you would be surprised in those spaces where they go, sir, you think that you're the only one that's dealing with this? I'm actually also dealing with this. And by holding space for your fellow man, you have now possibly opened up the avenue to also listen and don't judge, and let out whatever it is that you're also dealing with. And so if you can't find a safe man to do that with as a man, then find a therapist or find a counselor or find something else. If you are looking for a community or a place that you can hold space, there are things online. There are things, there are communities online. If you don't want to reveal yourself, you want to stay anonymous, there are also things online. There are many, 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 many ways of getting help. There are, what is it like? hotlines, there's community groups, there's quorums, there are forums, there's Quora, there's Reddit, there's just Google something. It was like mental health crisis for men. You'll be surprised that in those spaces, there are not men in your own life. There are not men that you've never met, but there are men that are dealing with what you've dealt with, and they're there to hold space with you. Though that's how you advocate for yourself. That's how you choose you. Don't just look at the men around you and go, man, these people are not going to be able to hear me. They're going to judge me. I can't, I'll just take the secret to my grave. Don't you do that. Don't you do that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that also made me think about this sort of cultural expectation that men have to figure it out by themselves because they're the fixers. And
Mm.
I've actually had to have some tough conversations with men in my life where, I'm having an emotional moment and they tell me to stop crying. And I'm like,
Oh, word?
these are my feelings, these are my emotions. This is how I process my
Right.
stuff.
Very
But
different.
he didn't mean anything bad by it. He was one uncomfortable that he saw me uncomfortable and wanted to fix it. So kind of selfishly, probably unconsciously, he's like, stop crying, just stop crying, it's not helping anything. Which, sure, okay, maybe it's not fixing a problem, but it's helping me decompress, it's helping me process. And that's
Right.
something that we know for sure is something that men are not encouraged to do. Men
Right.
are encouraged to hide their feelings unless maybe they're angry. That's okay because men are angry, right? But don't be sad. Don't show vulnerability. Don't show care, like genuine soft, care to other men. It's okay to be soft with your female friends or partners or spouse, but there's this, yeah, this kind of unspoken and sometimes very much spoken expectation that you got to fix stuff. You can't be soft. And, if you don't know the answer, figure it out, but don't tell anyone you don't know the answer. So, don't ask questions.
This is terrible. It's just this horrible vicious cycle, this horrible vicious cycle that helps no one and is really affecting the lives of men everywhere. Like I said, I've quoted the suicide rates and the depression rates and the alcoholism rates and the drug abuse rates and just just the violence rates. Like, as in, if you're a person that you're dealing with this, you're gonna get frustrated. You might become like a violent person. You might become like not the best version of yourself, and that's not what we're doing here at the Magic of Metabolic Health. So, when it comes to this culture, you have to kind of like you have to kind of see, it's like you have to look around you as like a man, and you have to look around you and say, I've grown up with these really good men, and I've seen this person lose it, and this person end up killing themselves, and this person end up losing their significant other and their house and their wife and the kids and the dog too. And like, I've seen this person end up losing their job all because of their inability. And you're like, I don't know what's going on with that guy, but I don't want to be like that. You have to have that self efficacy of, I don't know what happened to that guy, but I don't want to be like that. I need, and the way that you can prevent yourself from being like that is not by saying, yeah, I'm gonna be tough enough. I'm just not gonna end up like that guy. You think that guy wanted to end up like that? You think that guy wanted to end up like that? Of course not. But he didn't know how to help himself. And we're here on this episode saying that there is a way for you to help yourself. And so we have to circumvent this societal trend of, oh well, you just got to figure out by yourself. Men that really figure it out by themselves don't do well. The men that actually do well are the ones that have community. And it doesn't have to be everybody that knows. It could just be the one friend. It could be the one mentor. It could be the one family member that reaches out and grabs their hand and keeps them from slipping off the edge. It could just be the one intervention that you stood up one day and said, you know what? I see this happening in my community, and it's just not going to be my portion. It's not going to be my turn. It's not going to be me. You got to self-advocate for yourself. And that's what women do. Women often self-advocate for themselves. They often have a community. They often go and seek help. They often do this. And so, because it's a community that said, I'm not going to do this by myself. And that's why women survive suicide rates. I mean, suicide attempts. Also, the fact that the choice of suicide is typically not something lethal like guns. It'll be like poison. They'll survive that. But the fact is that they have people to rally around them. When they get sick in the hospitals, guess what? The people that have guests that come and visit them are women. They're women because they have a sense of community. There are people that went into out in their community, and whether they have children or not, they are volunteers at their church. They're volunteers at their community like knitting group, or they volunteer. They just help. They are a part of their community, and that sense of community comes back to help them so that when something goes on in their life, they're able to rely on someone. They're able to call out for help, and someone can actually help them. The more that you isolate yourself, especially in the male community, the worse it is. The worse it is.
Yeah, and this comes into the why, right? So if you're ready for change, you know why you're ready for change.
Sure.
And it's going to be uncomfortable, right? Because
Sure.
you're going to have to start doing things differently, and you're going to have to start talking differently, whether it's how you talk about yourself or how you talk to other people, specifically how you talk to men, right? You're going to have to take risks. You know,
Mm.
if there's something in your life that you're just, man, I'm really tired of X, then you've to address it, you can't figure it out in a vacuum. And let me tell you from experience, I've not only made that mistake, but I've witnessed men in my life make that mistake where they don't want to burden me, the woman, or they feel like, well, I caused this problem, so it's my problem to fix, which, you know, to a certain degree makes sense. Like if you did mess up, sure, own your shit. But at the same time, if it's like deep emotional stuff, if it's trauma, if it's unresolved childhood things, you cannot solve, resolve, heal in a vacuum by yourself in your head. Okay? There's community that is vital for those processes to be worked through. And as we mentioned earlier, you know, therapy is a great option. Sure, it might cost money, but there's also hotlines that I know people who have used that are free. And that was actually, it ended up being a turning point for them where,
Mm.
you know, therapy either wasn't available or it wasn't the right time or something. So they utilized these hotlines. And that ended up being this aha moment after
Mm.
some time of like, okay, I get it now. I
Sure.
can't continue to live as if I'm the only one here for me.
Sure.
And so they started talking about things with other men. They found a better therapist or another support group, or they started journaling and writing about their feelings and not just constantly circling in their head about, oh, this is my problem, you know, 1 + 1 = 2. I just have to fix it mathematically with this equation, you know. And one thing I do appreciate about some of my relationships with men is that they are very, um, what's the word? Not mathematical, but like
Logical.
sure, logical, structured. In, you know, they look at a problem and they're like, okay, this is the problem. What's the best solution? And when it comes to material things,
Emotion. Right.
or well, so too, right? Emotions and material. So when it comes to material things, it's it's like, oh, the sink is broken. XYZ needs to be done to fix it.
Sure.
Simple. Unfortunately, that simplicity of fixing a sink issue doesn't always transfer into the emotional
Sure.
problem.
This is a great analogy, Amelia. Like a great analogy. Because a lot of men, when they find they have like a mental issue, like, anxiety, depression, adjustment disorder, they're not able to like figure out what's bothering them, that kind of thing. They're like, I can't fix this thing like I would fix a sink. I can't fix this thing like I would fix a car. And if I can't fix it like that, then I guess there's no way to fix it. I'm just going to bury it. And that is, and that's part and parcel of the problem, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, so the nuances, right? We talk a lot about nuanced things. Emotions are nuanced. Everyone's story has nuance to it. And when the why comes up for you, because like we've talked about alcoholism and things like that, addictions or habits that are not serving us, the why has to come from a place that is your ride or die. You can't just choose to change because, oh, something's happening soon. I better get ready for that. Like weddings is a very common thing for women to prepare for. Like they want to get in shape, they want to look great in their wedding dress. I don't
Sure.
know if that's the same for men because you guys just get to wear a suit, but
Not true. I know guys that they're like, I gotta, a little spiffy up. I want to, make sure I'm looking good, that kind of thing.
sure.
Depends on the
Yeah,
culture.
but that bigger why, that very deeply rooted why, and I know a lot of guys have children under 40 and over 40, and you want to be around to spend time with your kids. You want to be able to play with them outside. You want to, or if you're an uncle, right? You want to go visit them and you want to do fun things with them, and that
Yeah,
requires optimal health for the most part,
yeah.
right?
I love
So
it.
asking yourselves the why, and maybe that's something that could be one of the takeaways today is
Yeah, knowing
you
your guys'
know,
really
talk
important.
if you're going to talk to other men about anything, ask them what they do and why they do it.
Ooh, I like that. As because I know that some because when I'm talking to men, I usually just ask them like and ask them, hey, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And they explain it to me. And like if there's one thing I know that men like to do is explain things. And so
That was such a diplomatic way of saying it.
I'm serious. So if you don't know how to bring the topic up to your bro or your homie or whatever the case may be like, hey, what's going on with this? Why are you doing that? Oh, why are you going to the gym? Or why are you eating this? Why are you eating that? Or it's like, oh, I noticed that things are going well for you. What are you doing? It's like getting a tip, like to be able to break into that conversation and like, okay, so but why are you doing that? And then they'll be able to explain to you why is it that they're doing something. But knowing your why, depending on your age, is really important too, because like I said, for like men younger than 40, as in like I said, um what I noticed is that a lot of it is about, getting your mate, getting your person, getting the person that's going to be your ride or die, or making sure that you're fit, making sure you're active, making sure that you can be able to keep up with the young guys or keep up in your sport that you're playing, maybe soccer, maybe whatever your case you're doing. When you're a little bit older, your body's going to slow down, but you want to still be able to perform sexually. You still want to be able to look good. You don't want to. You still want to have that energy. You still want to be able to, keep up with your kids, keep up with your grandkids. You still want to be able to be sharp. You want to be mentally sharp. You want to be the established older gentleman that did what he needed to do in life. It's still a thing of honor, dignity, purpose. So as in, great episode, Amelia. Like great freaking episode.
Yeah. So to kind of bring it back around, I was looking at my notes, and I mean, for me, a takeaway, and tell me if you have more to add, Fumi, but from the first topic with hormones, I think it's really important for men to understand that if you're having a health issue, don't just blame it on testosterone and testosterone only.
Mm.
Given the rates of
Amazing.
diabetes in this country, heart disease,
One in
all
five.
these other things, pay attention to your insulin. If you want to get your teeth checked, get your teeth checked. Yes, by all means. And check your insulin and your A1C at the same time and
Yeah.
see what you find out.
Sure, absolutely. Check your weight. As in, one of the number one thing I was talking about when we first started is about your weight, and the fact is that when you're heavier and you have more fat on you, have more fat mass. Um, you are losing muscle. Like muscle mass is something that we're always talking about as doctors, especially as metabolic health practitioners. And the fact is that the more muscle you lose, your body replaces that with fat. And so you start dealing with something called sarcopenia. That loss of mass, that loss of muscle mass will get replaced with fat. And so your body becomes weaker over time. Keeping your basal metabolic rate up, preserving the amount of muscle that you have will prevent future decline. And so, if you're a young man under 40, that should be your number one purpose: getting your muscle mass up, keeping your T up, making sure you are at peak performance as long as possible, so that once you cross 40, you can keep preserving what you've already built.
Yeah.
That's super important.
Yeah, and that leads into the second topic we talked about, which was fat gain. And that included getting adequate deep sleep. That included, addressing food habits, which we didn't get into greatly. But
We talked about processed foods and things like that. We talked about the fact that we're not eating enough protein as a society, especially if protein is building those muscles, which is increasing your T, which is reducing the amount of insulin resistance that you have. So I think we talked
yeah,
about it a little bit, but we can also talk about just intermittent fasting, allowing your body to be able to use those fat storages, use that glycogen storage in order for it to create energy. So it's not every time that you should be eating 6 meals a day. Sometimes you should do intermittent fasting you could do 12 hours, you could do 18 hours, you could do it once or twice a week, and you would be surprised the benefits that your body would have just by doing that.
yeah. And so I would say another big to do, if you guys are ready to make a change, make an appointment with your doctor for a physical.
Oh,
And go to your appointment with a list of questions, maybe that were
ooh.
surfaced from this conversation, right? But we can't give medical advice. We can offer ideas. We can offer our own experience from a professional standpoint. But if you're having signs and symptoms of any of the stuff that we talked about, including mental health, make an appointment with your PCP. Schedule it as a physical, especially, I learned this the hard way. If you have insurance, you get a physical a year for free. So make
Yeah.
sure, even if you have a testosterone question, schedule it as a physical appointment, your annual exam, and you can ask all your specific, specialty questions there. And if your PCP can't um, respond accordingly, they'll send you to a specialist. So I think that's another thing that I want to encourage all the guys listening, because we talked about, the whole stigma of like fixing it yourself, pretending it's not that bad, not talking about it. Like, go to the doctor, man. Like, they got some really great resources. And
I'm telling you, like, it's actually wonderful because you're absolutely right, Amelia. As in, when I think about the number of patients I have that don't want to talk about it to their friends or their bros or whatever the case may be, and they run to the hospital to be able to talk about it to somebody, that could just be the shoe in the door that gets you to actually take care of the things that you're worried about. So yeah, go to the, especially if you have insurance, you should be doing a physical once a year just to make sure that you're still good. You want
yeah,
to be on top of it. And so why not? If you don't have insurance, all right, then we're talking about something else. Um,
yeah, one of the phrases I like is prevention over prescription.
Ooh, I like that. Nigerian people. And I got to bring it back to the Nigerian. If I don't have a Nigerian adage in a show, then I'm not doing my job here. Case in point, the lovely shirt that was actually given to me by a friend says Omo Eko, which means Lagos kid, essentially. But what it is that they said that prevention is better than cure, which is that look, if you once you have something, you have it. And so it is better for you to throw your energy in preventing it from happening than from once you have it, then you have to think about, okay, how do I reverse it? And now you're stressed out. Okay, what am I going to do? You could also just live a life of making sure that you don't get it by, maybe scaling it back or stepping it up, whatever the case may be. But yeah, prevention is better than cure. And, or prevention is better than what you say, medicine?
Prevention over prescription.
Prevention or prescription. I would 100,000 times prefer to tell my patients to go fix their diet, hit the gym, couple times a week than for me to start giving them metformin or insulin for diabetes. I would 100,000 times prefer to tell my patients to fix their diet, to go to the gym, to talk to a mental health professional before they have to start giving them SSRIs and I have to start giving them antipsychotics. I would 100,000 times prefer to get my patients to fix their diets and go to the gym than for me to start giving them statins, because all these medications have side effects. Every single medication in the world has a side effect. There's not a single thing that doesn't have a side effect. So why not something that is free and side effect free than something giving a prescription? 100,000 times more, Amelia.
Yeah, and that goes into our last topic that we covered today, which was stress and mental health. And you just covered it, right? Food is medicine.
Food is
Food
medicine.
is medicine. Talking, speaking, sharing feelings is medicine.
Sure.
I can't tell you how many times I just have a conversation with someone. I'm distraught over something, and then 30 minutes later, there's resolution. Maybe the answer didn't come and everything's perfect, but there's a physical, like energetic release from my body that I no longer have to hold on to because I
Yeah.
just spoke. I
Just spoke
just
about it.
shared, I cried a little bit, maybe I yelled a little bit, but that person was there and didn't judge me, listened, held space for me,
That's
right?
right.
And I think there are some very fine men in my life who are very committed to holding space for other people, and especially men, and they're navigating it. Some of them are under 40, some of them are over 40,
Sure.
but what I see and I hear that's in common with these particular men is that they truly care about their friends and family to the point where they actively seek how they can contribute to the health, happiness, and well-being of their friends and family. Not just like
Okay.
supporting, like, oh, I'm going to pay the bills, or oh, I'm going to take you out to dinner, but like they really care, and they're they're delicately navigating some new, I guess, approaches or like habits. They've been saying, one person specifically said to me recently, like, I don't want to force my man friends to talk about all their woes, right? I don't want to be that person, but I want to open the door and just let them know
Sure.
that I'm here. And
I
just
think that's important.
yeah, just the fact that they say that, I think is huge. Like, even if it's a text, like, hey, bro, just want you to know if you're having a hard
That's
day, hit me
man.
up. Do it in your own style, your own vibe. Like,
Sure.
your friends, yourself, and, you know, push the envelope a little bit. Take a little risk. Reach out to that coworker that, you think is cool. You guys share same musical interests or have similar hobbies. Like, take it one step further. Hang out outside of work, ask a question, offer your own story a little bit.
Sure. I love it. I love it all, honestly. I think it's good. I think that I think more than talking, I also think it's about movement. What do you think happens first? The action or the thought?
In this context or just in life?
Okay, great. I love it. As in, what I was going to say is that, all right, let me scrap it. It's too broad. So, how about this? How about motivation? Do you think motivation happens first in thought or in action?
Mm, motivation. Well, I think it's a thought response to something that you could witness
Thought
from
response to action.
the
So,
outside, possibly. Like, if I become motivated to start eating eggs and bacon every morning instead of a bagel and cream cheese, I that motivation could come from a lot of different things, but the thought is first from probably some kind of direct experience of either I witnessed someone benefiting from eggs and bacon, or I thought, man, I'm tired of being bloated and feeling famished an hour after I eat my bagel, I'm going to try and eat more protein. And so, sure, it's a lot of thought process, I guess. I don't know if that.
So I think what I was trying to go for is the fact that when it comes to motivation and doing something, the action must precede the thought. And here's what I mean by that. When you want to do something, you're saying, okay, let's say you want to go to the gym. All right, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to get ready to go to the gym. I'm going to have my gym outfits on. I'm going to go and sign up for the gym. Da 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 da. Forget about all of that. Forget about the preparation to do. Just go. You must do the action in order for you to reinforce doing something. You must be consistent in your efforts in order for you to develop the habit. You must actually do the thing. You can think about doing things 1,000 times over. To do the thing is the most important thing in order for you to reinforce the actual action that you're doing. And so if you cannot do the thing, then you will always think about doing the thing. Just do it, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Just do it. Just try. Just try your hand at it. The worst that could happen would be like, okay, that was embarrassing. And guess what? You didn't die. Did you die from it? No. Yeah, a little embarrassing thing. Did you die from the embarrassment of doing the thing? Did anything happen to you? Did you lose money from doing, did you not get a check from doing that thing? Did you lose sleep over this thing? Do the action is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And this is important because when you do something and you keep doing it with consistency, regardless of if you see a result, consistency, regardless of how you feel about it, the consistency of this thing is what will increase your self-worth, your self-motivation, your purpose. Doing the thing. If you can't go to the gym, go to the sauna. If you can't go to the sauna, do an ice bath. If you can't do either, sleep well. Doing the thing will help you more than anything else.
Yeah. I like that. And consistency can also be supported through accountability. So
An accountability partner.
You can tell
Yeah.
someone, hey, like if you have a thought right now, don't think about it any longer than it takes to send a text to someone and say,
Yes.
hey, I'm going shopping. I'm going to get 2 pounds of bacon and 2 dozen eggs. And tomorrow I'm going to feast for my breakfast and change my habit. Right. And it could be a friend, it could be a loved one. Choose. Just pick someone who you love.
Sure.
Right.
I love it. The reason there was a time where I had moved into another city. I didn't know anybody. I used to go to this gym. And the person, the gym attendant in the door that checked me in, every day I would come in like maybe 6:30. So the one day he didn't see me, I didn't come in. Maybe the next day, the following day, he's like, "Hey, I didn't see you." I was like, "Oh crap!" He's my accountability partner. When I don't come, he knows that I'm not there. It doesn't have to be. It could be the mailman. It could be the mailman every day you see that sees you walking out the house to go to the gym. That's your person. That's like, oh, when you don't do something, it's keeping you. Oh, I didn't do that thing. Oh, that's right. That's right. I'm staying on top of my goals. I'm staying consistent with it. And consistency doesn't mean, okay, I spent 2 hours at the gym every single day. One day you might not have the energy to do that. But what you can do, squats at home, push-ups at home. What you can do is like, okay, you could only intermittent fast today, but you couldn't do it tomorrow. That's fine. You fell off one day, the next day, pick it back up. Accountability to yourself. Accountability to yourself will get you the discipline to love yourself, to really, really care about yourself, to really be able to say that you are him. Because I want every man leaving my episode to know, if I have not been moving like someone that is him, today, as of today, I am moving like somebody that is him. And if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I say when you wake up in the morning, you say, I am him. There's nothing better than that. There's nothing better than that. Are you kidding me? There's nothing better than that.
Yeah. Great conversation.
I'm telling you, this is a great episode. I really enjoyed it. The next time we have because I was saying that we want to do like a episode where we interview like a really high profile male, maybe. Who was the person you were saying?
Well, I don't want to reveal it quite yet
Okay.
because it's in the works, but
Okay.
hopefully it'll be very soon. And guys, gals, everybody, you're gonna love it. We're because I think we want to do an episode on mental health.
Sure.
And so if we get one or two people to hop on board, that'll be fabulous. And we'll
Sure.
just
Like a
continue the
panel.
conversation there.
Ooh, like a panel. I love that. That sounds good.
So, okay, well, I think we kind of got through our takeaways. And geez, well, I think we did it. Please, everybody who's watching or listening, leave a comment. Tell us what you thought. Man,
Yeah.
woman, child over 18.
Any questions, comments, concerns? Uh,
Yeah. More information that you're looking for. If there's something in the show episode that you're like, whoa, I never heard about that before. Or, hey, I'd like to learn more about this topic. Please let us know. And if you're looking for a personal trainer, shameless plug, wherever you are, I offer virtual personal training as well as metabolic health coaching, which they're pretty much they're interrelated. They're not necessarily separable, but for
mhm.
some people who are ready to get moving, that's training, right? Other people who want to focus on food first, that's more of like the coaching thing. And all of it can be done virtually. So hit me up at primitivepulsefitness.com. And our YouTube channel is going to also be thriving even more in these next weeks. We're going to be posting more video shorts and kind of tips, quick tips, FAQs, things like that from our end. So, yeah, thanks for being a part of our village. This is the Magic of Metabolic Health podcast, and we will see you next time.
Bye, guys.
We're bringing healthy back. Them other bros don't know about the facts.